And we'll be asking the question, as I said earlier, whether or not a total lockdown may be imminent, particularly for some particular places. And in the studio, once again, is Dr. Titus Bayo, Deputy General Secretary and member, Infectious Diseases Committee of the Ghana Medical Association. He is one of the people, first responders at the front line of what is going on. Also, will be on Skype is Professor William Bar Boateng, Head, Department of Economics, University of Ghana, and Director and Senior Fellow, International Institute for the Advanced Studies, University of Ghana, Legon. But right now, on the phone is the Honorable Finance Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Ken Oforiatta, for joining us on Newsfile this morning.
Hi, thank you. Good morning, Samson. How are you?
I'm very good. Now, whilst we are in...
I hope you are wearing a face mask.
Yes, I'm getting there. The doctor just gave a bit of advice to all of us, even within this space right now, and I'm going to start implementing that.
I would have imagined you said it on CNN yesterday as a news person.
Right. You know, Trump says he's been advised that face masks are good, but he won't take that advice. I don't know why. All right. So whilst we sit at home and try not to move, and like the president said, you know, the front line is our front door. You have been very busy risking and going through what may be necessary to secure our safety. How has this period been for you and the Finance Ministry?
I mean, I guess truly, Samson, I remember coming to your studio, but I think we've been, you know, as a country, well led or blessed, because we were, you know, able to go to market in January to issue our 3 billion euro bond, and immediately the market got shut afterwards. So you can imagine the predicament we are in. Yeah. So we really sort of had a buffer and at least a stable mental state to be able to confront. So when the president then moved very quickly that we should find $100 million for preparedness, to do that, at least we certainly had the savings to be able to do that. Yeah. But the Minister of Finance, you know, given our sense, you know, what has happened in the Bible with regards to Joseph and how the hunger could go on for a long time, decided to move very quickly to the World Bank to see whether we can replace whatever money we have. And then something we've been successful. On Monday, $65 million was brought in to shore us up. And then next week, Monday, another 35. So we would have recouped all of the $100 million that we have. In addition, in doing the analysis, it was quite clear that we're going to lose some 9.5 billion cedis through loss in petroleum revenues, import duties, domestic taxes, etc. So we also quickly moved to seek some support from the IMF with regards to the rapid credit facility. And we are one of the first countries that will go to board next week. And that would potentially bring us another $1 billion to be able to support lost revenue. And then also working with the World Bank for another $300 million. So the question, then we looked, you know, we also, you know, fundamentally looked locally, and we had some $318 million in our stabilization fund. Parliament has been very gracious last night. I think we closed Parliament at 10 p.m. Very hard-working members of Parliament, and that was approved for us, for it to go to the contingency fund. And then we will work with the Finance Committee to get those it's been a lot of running, but the men and women at the Ministry of Finance have been extremely diligent. It's just a point in history, and we all just have to shore up whatever we have to do, where we've been placed to do the best for the Republic.
The President says that you know how to bring the economy back, but what you do not know is how to bring back lives that are lost. You clearly are looking to spend a lot. Already we have the Kayaye, group of Kayaye who are trying to run away, as it were, to their homes because they are homeless, have exposed what we find will be one of the challenges. Homeless people will need to be fed. We have been told about plans that the government intends to roll out to benefit, everybody else. We know elsewhere people are staying home and yet they will be paid. Looking at how much you are going to pump into the economy over the period, what are your fears about sustaining the economy in the midst of COVID-19?
Right. I think the President's statement says it all with regards to the government's priority. Something you recall, in our very first budget, we did talk about the preferential option for the poor being the undergirding philosophy going forward, which led to the abolishment of a number of taxes and also moving towards senior high school education, because fundamentally the wealth of the country is in the people. So President is just really reminding us as to who we are, as a society. Yes, the indices indicate within 3 years that we have managed the economy as competently as anybody could have. But in the end, what is this all about? But it's about people. So even as we look at the contraction that we are going to see, because we are going to have a GDP growth which is projected at 6.8%, moving down to 2.6 and possibly 1.5, depending on the intensity of the outbreak. And it then exposes, the fragility of social system, the reason why you have such a huge informal market, maybe 90% of our population, reason why people are not on any list or registered, reason why people do not save, reason why people do not pay taxes. I think it's going to be an interesting time, right. Because if I am going to proceed to shore up small businesses, how am I going to do that? At the best, and which is what we're looking at, work with NBSSI and work with the registered associations from hairdressers, etc., to see who is listed and find out a mechanism to be able to give them this 200,000 cedi loan over a certain period. And really, for all of us to confront ourselves as to why I'm not registered, why I don't have a TIN number, why I can't be found, and see these weaknesses that we then all have to take this opportunity to cure. So for us, yes, we're going to do our best with regards to the data that we have and the channels that we have to be able to transmit this type of support.
Right.
But it is going to be a challenging period, and we're going to try and look at the record of telephones to see the level of poverty. We have, I think, about 24% of our population that earns below 1,700 cedis a year. And that's about something 7 to 8 million people. And these are all, in a sense, private entrepreneurs who go out each day to earn and therefore be able to have sustenance. So what does a government do? A government that has run a budget deficit for the past 20 years. You can't conjure up, money from somewhere. You don't have currency that people trade around, because yours is dependent on the foreign exchange market.
Yes.
And so what level of quantitative easing or whatever you call it can you do? So it becomes, in a sense, quite laughable when educated people ask me about that, when they know for the fact that A, we don't have savings, B, people are not paying taxes, C, and so we're going to scramble. But as usual, I'm sure we'll find the creativity to find a way, and we are a bit ahead of the curve.
That certainly is such a huge dilemma, and many countries are facing the same. The U.S. alone, only in March, is recording in excess of 700,000 job losses. Unemployed people. We know that similar situations are happening across the globe because of this particular disease. And when people are not being called upon to pay tax, how does the government make money to take care of them in the circumstance? Yet must people expect what you may call the helicopter funds or helicopter money, where you are going to make direct, non-repayable monies available to them? Are people going to get any tax holidays? What relief are the utilities, people going to get for utilities, ECG and water, all of that?
Yeah, I mean, something, I think you are asking, in a sense, for a Santa Claus package when you know the limitations of your own economy. So the question really is, within the basket of what we have, what is the prudent thing we can do so that we are alive for tomorrow? Okay, and that is what we are putting our minds to. If you see the issues in terms of where we are going to find resources to support, I think we than any government is going to do that. There are three things. First of all, you need to take care to make sure that people have food on their table. Secondly, you somehow need to get small businesses and micros working because that's the bulk of our people. Thirdly, you need to now look at the big companies and the specific sectors such as pharmaceutical, agriculture, etc., to see what you can do with regards to liquidity and facility, and for them to be able to continue business. And then fourthly, we look at the international market as to how best we can get some debt relief on a scale that gives us the fiscal space. And then within the structures of our own economy, look at our laws, to look at, the earmarking that we have in our budget, and the laws around the heritage, et cetera, et cetera. So these are all a confluence of things that is agitating our mind. And yes, all of those things that you have mentioned are things that we have to consider. Certainly, the issue of water and utility and electricity, water, utility bills. So you look at the consequential impact on how it will affect ECG or IPPs to make sure that there is electricity in your home. Is it possible to defer payments for a number of months? Is it possible to get tax exemption for some critical areas? So all of those something are being assessed, but with really a mindset of how can we hold this through the year? I have to look through the year. In a number of conversations with African finance ministers these past 3 weeks that I have chaired with the finance minister of South Africa, the thinking is that we are looking at a 2 to 3 year literal hiatus. And therefore, how do you move this from the present into what the Ministry of Finance is now developing a COVID care and revitalization of enterprises program, which goes beyond. So yes, we're going to look in our pocketbook to make sure that we find a way, working with the FPOs, NADMO, district assemblies, how we can get a meal to as many citizens as possible. possible within a certain framework, and then use the billion CDs or so that we are going to get from the stabilization fund to find ways of working with MBSSI, rural banks, etc., so that we can transmit some very sort of favorably rated loans to small-scale entrepreneurs. And as I mentioned, continue to work with the banks to enhance the facilities, look at deferral of interest, etc., so that we can have something that is uniquely Ghanaian, and at the end of the day, we will all be part of this enterprise.
Thank you very much.
There's really no magic wand. But I think the excitement really for us is to also use this period. One thing that I'm bringing to the Development Committee of the World Bank is to say that let's truly have a wholesale digitalization of the continent, such that I know where everybody is and I can be much more helpful directly than anyone else. Right. The Heritage Fund I brought to Parliament because I think it has to be considered. You know, when you hit times like this, which the crafters of the Constitution or the law may not have envisaged, you open it up and say, okay, so what is it that triggers it? So that is not in my measure, but to say that as our country and as parliamentarians go out after the adjournment, to speak to their constituents, to say what is it that we need to trigger a heritage fund, because we will not have a heritage if the people don't live today, and to exercise our minds to see how best we use our resources, and resources do not become a fetish. But I'm confident that the Lord is doing a new thing in our country, and that we'll see some hidden treasures where we go. But we'll continue to protect first the spirit and the life of our people and make sure that businesses are functioning.
Thank you so very much. I would like you to hold on briefly for me, even though I understand that you have an important engagement, you know, to advance our welfare. I would like you to hold on just briefly for us. But before that, if I may ask, the $1 billion bailout that is supposed to go to the SMEs, how can one, you know, access that fund?
Yeah, I think that I did allude to the fact that we're going to be working with MBSSI and the rural banks, Ghana Commercial Bank, and the Consolidated Bank because of the reach, and then work with the trade associations with the Minister of Trade and Industry is getting, you know, the list of them. Then we'll figure out in which this can be transmitted, that will get to a majority of those people. So just kind of watch out for the stage. A lot of work once the thing has been approved by Parliament is going to go on to see how quickly we can get our micro and SMEs working.
All right. So please indulge us briefly. Let me speak to Professor William Boateng. And I want you, having listened to the Finance Minister, what do you think, how do you assess the situation and the dilemma and the difficulty that he and his team face, and how do they stimulate production and move the economy out of the threat of recession?
Well, Samson, before I listened to the finance minister, I would have said that it's a good time to be a finance minister. Having listened to him, had some discomfort. A lot of things have been placed to be able to get some kind of relief for everybody. So I think many things that he has said are the area that I think he needs to look at. We were quite worried when people were talking about a stimulus package quoting from developed world and not contextualizing the situation as we find out. Of course, if you look at our economy, it's dominated by micro enterprises, informal sector, and how do you get big people on board? So from where I sit, many things that the finance minister has said are things that have been thought through. And of course, looking at other areas like tax relief, trying to get everybody benefit from one intervention or the other is the best way to go. I would say that where we find ourselves now, I think we need to concentrate more on how to solve the problem of COVID-19 and get to a situation where we can contain the spread. And then moving beyond that, many of the things that the finance minister has said will then be rolled out. I wrote a couple of things that he said. It means that the government is well prepared. We're talking about some money that are coming from the World Bank. We're talking about from the IMF, talking about other areas like going into the stabilization fund, the World Bank, and so on. It means that the government is well prepared to get us. I know that this is going to slow down the economy, and I'm sure if it ends in April, we will not be able to bring the economy to its level as when it was for the COVID-19 by the end of the year. But what the government has put in place, the money that the government has gotten in place, should be able to get us to a level and should be able to ignite, start the engine to get us to the level that we were before COVID-19.
In an interview with the BBC, Bill Gates said that a complete lockdown will not be feasible in developing countries because a greater proportion of people do not have savings. Any plans to cushion the poor to prevent starvation, crime, or suicide during the past a complete lockdown, or even in the measured lockdown? How would you advise the government to pursue, as it were, plans to, cushion the poor and to avoid starvation and crime?
The way government is going on with the lockdown is the best way to trying to look at where the problem is and then addressing it. Of course, now Accra, Kumasi, Tema, and Katwa being locked down proves that this is where we have the problem. If you look at Ghana, our population of about 30 million, if you take Accra, Kumasi, add Katwa, and Tema, we are moving into the arena of about 10 million people. It means the majority of the people are in the other part of the country. So even the current lockdown will not affect 2/3 of the population directly. Maybe indirectly we can see some of an effect, but directly about 10 million people will be affected who are within the lockdown zone. And I always say that this kind of disease is an epidemic because our people in the village are not getting it, and I'm sure it will not spread faster to cover them. So our agriculture sector will be intact. It wouldn't be much of a problem. Therefore, the effect will be at the level such as services, and of course, we have manufacturing and other areas. So I will suggest that many people, or some people, will lose their jobs and so on. We have problem with data, and the way to go will be an indirect approach. The government has LEAP, a direct cash transfer to the vulnerable, which should continue. But indirect way, I would think that some kind of relief in the way of maybe electricity. Is it possible for government to look at electricity? In 2017, government reduced taxes on electricity and it brought down electricity bill. So it means that if you were paying 1,000 cedis and the relief allows you to pay 700, it means that government has given you directly 300. I mean, this is an area that I think government can look at. The other area is maybe to look at micro enterprises where taxes are paid, and so many of micro enterprises are paying direct tax to these assemblies. Can we also look at that area and give them some kind of relief, months or 6 months, so that it will also cushion one way or the other? It will
what should happen to people? And this is the reality. There are people who can't survive a day if they don't go to work one day. As we speak, unless those who are in the food chain, we know that people who are supposed to go to market, people who are hawking and all of that, they don't have the opportunity to make money. That's the reality. What should happen to that class of people, the homeless? We have seen elsewhere, they are directing them into stadiums and other facilities so that they can be catered for. Handouts are given to them every day.
Well, I think we don't have to put all of them together, and you are talking about the homeless. We are talking about some people who are considered to be vulnerable. There are situations, there are people who were still struggling even when COVID-19 was not there. How were they struggling? That's the question I would pose. Those people that COVID-19 is affecting their businesses, I think direct kind of cash dash out wouldn't be the way to. How will you even identify them? That is the challenge that government will face, because in terms of our data, it is very difficult to be able to know the number of people who are in the construction sector who go out every day on to do the by day, as so to speak. You can't get them. So for those people who have a place to lay their heads and so on, there's not the indirect. But those people that you can identify, like the higher years and so on, that is where government will then have to come in and give them some kind of shelter, because for them, they don't even have anywhere to go. Those sleeping in marketplaces and so on. That one, the direct intervention will work.
All right.
But those who are scattered, it will be very difficult to identify them. And I think I will also add that the private sector should also take advantage of the situation we find ourselves and be innovative. Elsewhere, people are talking about unemployment benefit, which will be to implement here. But we also have what we call unemployment insurance. Insurance companies can take advantage of this situation, target the employees who are being laid off, get to them, find out what they can do, get to them so that when everything ends, you can them to be on your on your system and get some kind of unemployment insurance rule. These are the areas that I think the private sector can also go in.
All right.
It cannot be the government.
Thank you. And back to the Finance Minister, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta. And as I was mentioning earlier, and I wrongly quoted that the U.S. In March only 700, almost 700, over 700 have lost their jobs. Actually, 7 million. I want to find out, in Ghana, do we have a way of at least estimating what the casualties, so to speak, will be in the area of employment, and to tailor some, measure to help the situation? Yes, Mr. Ofori-Atta.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Great. Thank you very much, and thanks, Prof, for the light you've thrown into this and some of the ideas. Something as I mentioned earlier, and the professor did mention it, data is a problem. We just got through Parliament yesterday, actually, a $150 million project to support GSS for data. And then we're also going to have, God willing, the census this year, which will be targeted at also answering those questions. And my issue about digitalization is just going to be crucial. And really, we ourselves, in terms of our own honesty and integrity in how for all of us to become formal, especially in these circumstances. So yes, under 1,700 CDs is some 7 to 8 million people. And those are people who sort of earn income on a daily basis. So what do we do? I mean, we look at the various trade associations as a channel for that and see how the package may be able to help. But I think first and foremost, you did mention the issue of starvation, as Bill Gates said, and the professor did give quite an answer. I think the cultural food chain will continue, because even in the lockdown areas, as Accra, Kumasi, food is allowed to come in. And we're very particular about our own sociology, and therefore in keeping the markets open with the expectation and a sense of thinning out so that, we won't have that type of crunch that is happening in the West. And now, between NADMO, gender, finance, local government are putting together plans to see how we can deliver food to certain centers, working closely with the FPOs. So we are crafting our own sort of channels to see how, at the very least, there may be a source for a meal that you may not find. And I think that will be helpful as we then still keep our eye on the issue of micro businesses and also the big businesses. And the big businesses, I must say, are doing well. Kempinski, for example, has gotten a drop of occupancy from 70 to 20%. And even though they've let some people go home, they are continuing to pay them. And then it brings to sharp relief the issue of unemployment benefits and how we've never contemplated. So this will generate some thinking as to further protection of our people going forward. But Samson, this is an apocalyptic experience of no mean proportion. And so it's going to take some really somber, thought-provoking and deep search into our own souls as a people, how for all of us to be in the arena and fight for the humanity of our country, knowing that each citizen is precious. And I can guarantee the President's statement was clear, and we at the Ministry of Finance are doing everything we can to make sure that we come out of this in a good way. But it is difficult, and we're going to need the media, especially in terms of encouragement, in terms of hope, in terms of the resilience of our people, where we've come from and where we have been, the stability that we were just enjoying before coronavirus came around, and say that no, the Black Star will continue to shine, and with God on our side, this is going to work. I am humbly optimistic, and I just know that the people of Ghana will rally to make this. And I think our leadership is really clear. I mean, the Africans and the world is just pleased with how our president has managed the situation so far. And the key is for us, the acolytes, to hold his hands up and make sure that we win this battle with defeat.
Very finally, using the Kempinski example that you gave, and I think yesterday you disclosed that they are laying off as many as 85% of their workers. That's 340 out of the 400 workers that they have. They are closing as many as 4 floors of the hotel because there's no ready business. What advice will you give from where you sit to businesses like this entity?
I think that is a stellar example, of what it is. But the truth of the matter is that they also have loans to pay, etc. And therefore, the discussions with banks about deferral, looking at if therefore, they maintain workers, what type of tax relief do you have at the end of the day for them, so that we work hand in hand, and tax exemptions for those important critical items that we need, and using that opportunity to boost our pharmaceutical industry and our agro-processing industry. But I think we are all in this together, and we will recognize, everybody who steps in the arena to get this fight on so that we win it. But believe me, Samson, it means sleepless nights, but it's for a good outcome, and I'm confident in the future. So all of those ideas, we have a team in the finance ministry thinking about it. We have the coronavirus alleviation program. We are moving on discussions of the COVID care and revitalization of enterprises program, so that we take care of now and the future. But yes, presently, let's feed our people, let's keep businesses afloat,
All right.
and let's all work together to defeat this virus.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ken Oforiatta, and we wish you safety and superior wisdom and strategy as you help us navigate these very difficult times.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the time.
Right. Now, Professor William Boateng, what will you say, or what will be your advice to individuals, to businesses, to families, as you know, they begin to face this reality?
Well, something I will start with individuals. I mean, in this situation that we find ourselves, I think that the starting point is to look at our expenditure and make sure we spend on areas that are more important, and not to spend as if there's no COVID-19. Of course, if we were spending so much on data, telecommunication, so on, this time to ensure that your expenditure be basically on the basic things: food, shelter, clothes. I mean, these are the areas to consider. Then, in terms of businesses, there are different models that businesses can adopt in this kind of situation. For example, I mean, if you are supposed to deal with your workers, I mean, you can decide to say that, well, instead of asking workers to go home, can I bring down their salary, maybe pay them 30%, to spread the challenge across board. But I mean, if you listen to the minister about the Kempinski one, maybe they have decided to take out 85%. But the other model could have been to get everybody still on board and then paying a certain percentage so that you can spread it. But there are different models. Others can choose to lay off non-essential one and then keep the essential one. But businesses will also then have to look at the expenditure a part of their budget and then cut it off because money is not coming. So you have to concentrate on the essential expenditure, so that at the end of the day, you will not find yourself wanting. And the same applies to government. I think this is a time government will also reduce the unproductive expenditure as well, to be able to concentrate more on areas that can ignite the economy when the COVID-19 ends, and also to be concentrate on getting the virus at bay.
The minister spoke about beyond the advice he had and asking people to take an example from Kempinski, for example. He went beyond that to give assurance that that is where the government now comes in. And for example, they have loans to pay, so you give them some deferment. What more can be done beyond simply delaying when you will pay your loan? Should interest stop running? Should there be a capping of things? What should happen?
Well, in the financial sector, I don't think government can come in directly and ask banks to maybe defer interest and so on. It will be some kind of moral suasion, appealing the conscience of the bank. I understand a bank had asked that borrowers due to make their payments can hold on for the next six months. I mean, this is something that maybe the Bank of Ghana can take it up. Of course, Bank of Ghana has reduced the policy rate. It can go down further, and it will trickle down to the commercial banks, even though from where I sit, policy rate does not directly influence the determination interest or lending rates of banks. But the government do that by getting them to reduce their lending rate, not directly, but being influenced by policy. But we can also go by the moral suasion aspect, back to maybe declare some kind of payment, some moratorium, so that businesses and individuals will have some kind of being faced after the COVID-19 to be able to start something. That will be an area that I will go to.
Finally, I asked the minister whether or not Ghana could go the way of helicopter money, giving direct, money that will not be paid back, depending on the central bank. Is that something that we should be looking at?
That will not be something that will be good in our context. You can ask us, and I started by saying that do we even know people who are going to suffer from this? If you take our statistics in terms of employment, we have just about 25% of people in employment, about let's say 12 or 13 million people who are working, just about 25% who are in wage employment, and of course, formal employment. Majority of them are in the informal sector, are in self-employment. So if you are going to come up with some kind of dash out, are you going to consider self-employed? In UK government came up to say that they were going to pay about 75% of salaries of workers, and self-employed came out to say that, what about them? So yes, the self-employed people are very few, but the opposite is the case in Ghana. Our self-employed account for about 56 to 60%. So are you going to concentrate on just few 25% who are in wage employment? No. I think the best way to do it is... But that
segment still needs help. That segment still needs help. So what do you do?
Yeah, so that you go the indirect way, and I think I said that people who are going to be laid off are still going to make payment whilst at home. So if you've been laid off, by all means, when you go home, you are going to pay your electricity, you are going to pay some other things. Can government look at that area and give them some kind of relief? That indirect way will be the best, because the orange seller who is not selling, or let's say the second-hand clothing seller who is now asked to stay at home, about that, you cannot also give direct kind of cash dash out to that person, because he is not in wage employment, because you've not been able to identify that person in the data. So the best way in our context is to do the indirect way to benefit almost everyone.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor William Ba Boateng. They're also helping us with the economic analysis of the situation that the whole world is facing, and Ghana not left out. Thank you very much. Wish you safety as you go about your business. Right, we'll take a break here, and when we return, Dr. Titus Bayo will take his time and take us through what is happening as far as the disease and its spread in the country is concerned. We have been able to make contact tracing to a huge number. Is that good enough? We are seeking to make some sort of, mass testing. It's a limited mass testing, you can say. What is the purpose of that, and what will it achieve? We'll be right back.